Let's move on and let's ask a question that maybe you may have seen from the Tolkien professor as well, which is that if the orcs are bred from elves, not only do they have souls, but were the orcs immortal?
Were they immortal?
Elves are immortal.
Jeez. That's true. I don't think so, because they're bred in, like they're crossbred. So it's like they're not even like a full
They're inbred.
functioning. They're inbred as well. And actually, that was one thing that Peter Jackson wanted to show. I think the way he designed the Uruk-hai and the orcs, he wanted to have them like peeling in the face and having lots of like spots and ugly things. So
because they're inbred.
Because they're inbred, they're like a sandwich,
and they only eat maggoty bread.
Yeah,
maggoty inbred.
Maggoty inbred. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say that just by design and the way that they're created, that they're going to eventually like decompose and like
just fall apart,
wear away. Yeah, like they're too gross.
They are pretty gross.
I don't know.
I don't think they're. I don't think their bodies are just going to continue working for as long as the elves, I suppose. But anyway, the answer to this is that Tolkien himself recognized that this was a bit of a problem in his writing, and in volume 10 of the History of Middle Earth, there's actually a short essay entitled Orcs, and in it Tolkien muses a bit on where they came from, and this is like when he was starting to think of different possibilities of origins and all that kind of stuff. So he does have, like, he talks about the different possibilities of their origins, because this was again long after the Silmarillion had been written and he was starting to change his mind. So he does have this one interesting paragraph where he says, "They needed food and drink and rest, though many were trained as tough dwarves in enduring hardship. They could be slain, and they were subject to disease. But apart from all these ills, they died and were not immortal, even according to the nature of the Quendi. Indeed, they appear to have been by nature short-lived, compared with men of higher race, such as the Edain." So, Edain is just a line of men that were quite noble. Quendi is kind of just like elves. So that's just for if you don't understand what he was saying there. So basically, he's saying their orcs are not immortal. And he does go on to clarify that in the Elder Days, as I said earlier, some of Morgoth's servants were perhaps Maiar and therefore immortal. And they could have taken on whatever shape they wanted. So they could have taken on the shapes of orcs in order to lead other orcs into battle, maybe, you know. So that, and there's a quote here saying, "Thus it was that the histories speak of great orcs or orc captains who were not slain and who reappeared in battle through years far longer than the span of the lives of men." So there you go. That could be a Maiar who's just like, you know, in disguise as an orc, I suppose.
And like it kind of makes sense. They're if you're to put orcs alongside men, you'd say they're more similar to like the Dunedain, or you said the Edain. It's not like they're blessed with long life, but it's almost like sometimes long life in fantasy series is not just like Tolkien, but just in general. It's almost like, you know, cursed with long life. They're being forced to like roam the earth longer than others. Like Gollum as well. Like Gollum, you know, he lives to over 500 years old, and it's kind of like that's his curse. He has to hold on to this ring and this addiction.
Exactly.
And
in the prophecy, Kate Blanchett, sorry to interrupt, says that the ring brought to him unnatural long life. So even just from that wording, unnatural long life, and then you see him and he's just this horrible looking creature for the first time. You're like, oh right, yeah, it's not natural to live for that long.
It's kind of like in the last Star Wars movie where Darth Sidious says something like, what does he say?
You mean the most recent one?
The most recent one where he's like, something are more unnatural. You're like, there's the answer. That's why he's alive. Yeah. But I would imagine like orcs, they could like one random orc could live to 200 years old and get killed. Another could probably live to like 500 and then he just dies of disease.
Yeah, they didn't live the healthiest lifestyles anyway, you know. And they were kind of
whereas when you hear of elves being immortal, you're like, this is a beautiful being that will just stay beautiful until the end of time, unless it's killed. But and they don't really like suffer from diseases.
Yeah, you can just imagine the elves like morning skin routine is flawless. Like they get up and they're like, okay, gonna have a bath in milk, and then I'm gonna, do my eyes and whatever. And it's like really taking care
Rub
of
some of
themselves.
that orc goo on my cheeks.
The orcs are just like, they're drinking grog and having fights and like, probably just, I don't know. I'm going to see how long I can keep my hand in the fire kind of thing, They're just idiots, so.
Oh, that's a fun game.
But there is a case, there is one specific mention of orcs who had long lifespan, and there's a story of the two of some of the most famous orc chieftains, which were Azog and Bolg. Now Azog was Bolg's father. Bolg was the chieftain of the orcs who attacked Erebor in the Battle of the Five Armies. That was in 2941, and Azog was killed in a battle in 2799. So that was years and years earlier. So Bolg had to be at least 150 years old by the time of that battle. So that's where you can just see the 2 years. Okay, here's the year that the father died, and the son was in a battle over here 150 years later. So it stands to reason that it was minimum 150 years old. So that's one example of that. But I mean, like you said, maybe there was some like examples, which we see a lot in the Lord of the Rings, was the race of the like Edain or the Dunedain, where they were blessed with long life, so they'd live a little bit longer than most men, maybe like twice the length or something like that. So maybe that existed for orcs as well. But anyway, yep, there you go. So that's the answer to that.
Yeah, well, it's almost as well like they're elves that are corrupted. So elves were immortal, and it's like they're so badly and disgustingly corrupted that they're still technically elves, but their lifespan reduces to maybe 200 or 300 years or 400 years, or like depending on the orc. I suppose that's my.
They're just orcs that really didn't take care of themselves, I suppose. Yeah, sorry, they're like elves that just really like they're like just letting it all fall apart. They've never seen the inside of a gym.
I'd love to know an orc that died of natural causes as well. Like what? Like their natural causes is probably disease and beheading.
Yeah, but I'd say
natural
like,
causes.
I'd say like 90% didn't die from natural causes. I'd say it was really unusual for an orc to die of natural causes because the lifestyles that they lead.
Maybe when they got old and like useless, they would just be killed by one of the tribe members. They're always fighting. Like Tolkien actually talks about orcs fighting with each other all the time.
Oh yeah. So, and they ate each other. So like I mean maybe when the older
Cannibals.
people like so they're like which we get a nice nice shot of in Peter Jackson's movies as well, of where he cuts off his head and they just start eating him. So it's like so I mean they did do that. So obviously maybe if they saw other older orcs that was a sign of weakness, they were like, we could just kill him and eat him. So I mean, who's up for that? If we let him get older, the meat's getting even worse. So we might as well kill him now.